Friends, I welcome you all to CS series. This is lecture number 2 in the Indian Partnership Act 1932. I am your mentor Shekhar Gehlot. These classes are sponsored by Sri Jayendra Rank Zone. So we are discussing Indian Partnership Act. Until now we have discussed the basic essentials of the partnership and what are the distinguishing features between partnership and other forms of organization. Like in the previous class we discussed difference between partnership and the joint stock company, or simply say a company. Now we'll begin with our differentiation or distinction between partnership and a club. Okay, or and partnership versus Hindu undivided family. This distinction will help us in building a deep foundation about partnership and how it is distinct from other kind of entities which are available in the law. You give it a quick reading and then I'll join you in a 1 minute. In 1 minute we'll start discussion. So let us understand the difference between partnership versus a club. Okay. So by definition, partnership, like we have discussed, it is an association of persons formed for earning profits because it's only exclusively for commercial activity from a business carried on by all of them or any one of them acting for all. Like we have discussed, partnership. This is the definition of
It's 3
partnership.
o'clock.
It does not need further deliberation. Now we go to what is a club. A club is an association of persons formed with the object not of earning profit. Okay, the key difference between partnership and club comes here now. The partnership is formed with the sole motive of earning profits as many as possible. But in the case of club is not meant for earning profits. Okay, but for promoting some beneficial purpose such as improvement of health and providing recreation for the members, etc. Like there may be a health scheme, health insurance scheme sponsored by a residential society for its members only. Now they are not trying to make profits from each other. Okay, they are trying to insure people. They are trying to help people in the time of some travesty is there, some calamity or some health ailment is there to any family member. Then the club will pool the funds and provide the services for health emergency. That is the part of the club. That is the main purpose of the club. Okay, but club is not doing profit making activity. It is doing what it is doing is merely helping its people. Okay, helping its people and only beneficial activities for the people, for members only, for the members of the club. Let us do the relationship. Persons forming a partnership are called partners, and a partner is an agent for other partners. Like we discussed, we have different relationships, like relationship with brother, sister, husband, wife, and mother, father, and this and all. What are these? These are the names of those relationships. What relationship do we have? We describe the relationship with a particular name. So, similarly, partnership is the name of a relationship. Okay, what is the relation? The relation is principal and agent. Okay, the relation is that partners are principal and agent towards each other, and this is merely partnership, merely is a name of that particular relationship. What is the relationship between the persons in a club, members in a club? Persons forming a club are called members. A member of a club is not the agent of other member. One member is not the agent of another member. Whatever another member may be doing, or whatever may be the club doing, members are not responsible for the club's activities, and club is not responsible for the members activity. Neither one member binds another nor one member acts for the agency of another member. There is no agency at all. This is mutually exclusive. Members have no interrelation. They have interrelation, that is they are members only, that's it, but they are not agents. Clear? Another one is interest in the property. Partner has interest in the property of the firm because we have discussed partners are co-owners or joint owners of the assets of the firm. They individually hold it. Okay, they possess it and they can take decision regarding the property as well. All of the partners can take decisions regarding the property held by the partnership because the property is jointly owned, co-owned by all the partners. But in the club, persons forming a club are called members. Sorry, a member of a club has no interest in the property of the club because property of the club belongs to club only and it is managed by the trustees. Okay, the people who are engaged in handling the issues of the club who are sitting at the forefront, they handle the property of the club for the benefit of the beneficiaries. And who are the beneficiaries? The ultimate beneficiaries are the members, but members ultimately do not have any interest in the property of the club. Okay, they do not own it in the way the partners own it. They do actually have an interest, but not that interest which a partner is having. Partner is having a higher interest, a bigger interest than the members of a club. Further, the dissolution. A change in the partners of the firm affects its existence. Okay, a mere change in the partners affects the existence of the partners. Okay, this is very relevant here. Me and my brother, my friend, and my two more friends. We four friends set up a partnership. Now, partnership is based on the mutual trust and confidence. When one of the partner has died, because this partnership was built within four people, the other person has died. Now the partnership has come to an end unless there is a agreement that if someone dies, then also partnership shall continue. But if there is no such agreement, the death of a partner, the resignation of the partner, or leaving of a partner, or debarring of a partner from the partnership will bring an end to the partnership. Automatically the partnership will come to an end. Okay, but so is not in the case of a club. Club is having free entry and exit of the members. Suppose we have a club for a residential society, 500 people are living in that society. Now all those 500 people are members of that club. But say one family has moved out. So now there are 495 members, they will continue with the club. And now two more families have joined in. Now there are 505 members, five more now. But still, the club will continue. New members will come in, old members will go out. This is the rule of the club. Club is just like a company, it has a perpetual succession. It will keep going on forever. Okay, these are the differences between partnership and the club. I hope you all understand how different a club can be from partnership. And similarly, a club is different from a company by mere fact that company is also engaged in making profits, but club will not make any profit at all. Okay. Now let us come to partnership versus Hindu undivided family. First of all, understand what is Hindu. Okay, Hindu is anyone who is propagating Hindu religion or Sikh religion or Jain religion or Buddha religion is considered Hindu. People following all these four religions are known as Hindus, and Hindu is a separate kind of practice, a way of living. Hinduism is not a religion, it's a way of living, the way we carry ourselves, the way we live ourselves. Okay, that is called Hinduism. So, a Hindu undivided family. What is an undivided family? The family which has not divided itself, like my grandfather and his brothers and his brothers and then their son, my father, his brother, then their sons. We all, my brothers, my cousins, we all are living together in a same family. Okay, in a same family, we are living together. We are not divided, and whatever assets are holded by the family are held jointly by all of them, and we all are working together in same profession or something. Okay, and one of us is acting for all of us, or few of us. Suppose my father and his brother or my grandfather and his brother or his son, they are acting for the benefit of the family. They are taking business decisions as well as the decisions regarding the property of the family. Like we have some ancestral land, my grandfather wants to sell it, he can. Okay, so that is called Hindu undivided family. Hindus who are living undivided, someone who has become a nuclear family, like suppose say I, my wife and my one child, we have separated. Now we are no longer a part of Hindu undivided family, but yes, I can still again continue that Hindu undivided family with me, my son, his son and so on. Okay, so I can now again set up a new Hindu undivided family. So this is Hindu undivided family concept. Okay, now how this is different from the partnership, let us see. Mode of creation, the first differentiation is mode of creation. The common point, let us discuss the common point as well. Okay, this is the common ground between Hindu undivided family and the partnership, that both of them, both these institutions, both these entities operate, okay, operate for profits, okay, operates for profits. They all work for profits. Even Hindu undivided family is not invested into charity. This entity is also invested into profit making activities. Okay, so this is a common ground. Now let us come to distinctions. Mode of creation, partnerships created necessarily by an agreement, like we have discussed. Partners usually are not brothers. Partners are known people, people who know each other. They are friends, they are acquaintances, they are colleagues, they are co-workers, they are students who have studied together. Okay, they are partners. They come together, they form an agreement, mental agreement, written or oral, that yes, we should come up and set up a business. That is how partnership comes into picture. But how does a Hindu undivided family come into picture? The right in the joint family is created by the status, means its creation is by birth in the family. Okay, similarly, Hindu undivided family, there is no such agreement. When a person is getting birth in the family, he is having no agreement with the father, mother, or father, mother is no having no agreement with the son or the daughter. Okay, we do not have an agreement. Birth is not happening with the agreement in, okay, it is a natural process. So whoever takes place in the Hindu undivided family automatically by mere birth, by the status that I have taken birth in the family, like Ambani's, Tata's, or my family or some other family, they become part of that undivided family. Okay, this is the mode of creation of joint Hindu undivided family. Now, what is the effect of death of the member? Now, suppose one member has died, one in the partnership, other one in the Hindu undivided family. Like in the case of partnership, we have discussed. If a member dies, okay, if in a part, sorry, not a member, if a partner dies, the partnership ordinarily and in most cases will come to an end. The partnership will cease, it will be dissolved, because partnership is meant for mutual trust and confidence between partners. And if four partners agreed to set up a partnership, now one has died, okay, the partnership will come to end. Why? Because it was a partnership of four people, not a partnership of three people. If these three want to continue with their partnership, they can do so, but usually, ordinarily, legally, the partnership will come to an end. They'll have to set up a new partnership of three people now. Okay, so ordinarily, the death of a member in a death of a partner in a partnership firm will lead to its dissolution or closing up. Now let us take the case of Hindu undivided family. The death of a member in the Hindu undivided family does not give rise to dissolution of family business. Hindu undivided family, nothing happens. People keep on taking birth, people keep on exiting the family, people keep on dying as well. Okay, sometimes people are separated from the family, they set up their own family, they leave the family. Sometimes ancestors die, and many times newborns are included in the family. Hindu family keeps going on and on. It is just like a club or a company, it will never come to an end unless and until all members have died out. Okay, so this is how Hindu undivided family will continue. It will keep going on and on. It is also having a kind of perpetual succession, we may say. Now, read these differentiations and we will discuss them within a minute or two. Excuse me. Now let us see the basis of differentiation upon the management, how a partnership is managed. All the partners are equally entitled to take part in the partnership business. Like we have discussed, partnership says it is an entity which come together for earning profits, and partners are either all of them acting or anyone acting for all of them. So that means all of them can also act, and ultimately they all have say. They all can decide that somebody will act for us. That is also a collective decision. Okay, so all take equal part in the management of the partnership. But what is the case with the Hindu undivided family? Let us see. The right of management of the joint family business generally vests in the Karta, the governing male member or female member of the family. Karta is, I don't know why these comments are going up. So the ancient concept of the Karta was usually Karta used to be the eldest member of the family, eldest male member of the family. Now there is a change in the law. Now we can have females as also acting as a Karta. So even now an eldest female member can become the Karta. This is usually what happens in the joint undivided families. But now we have seen Kartas who are not the eldest one, but who are most skillful, most sharp, and most educated in the family, acting as the Karta because they understand the changed circumstances of the business and have a sharp business acumen. So they act as a Karta. Usually it is the eldest member. Okay, so the Karta has the, in the Hindu undivided family, the management is with the Karta. Anyone else is not entitled to say. They may express their opinions with Karta, but whatever Karta will decide is final in the case of Hindu undivided family. Authority to bind. Every partner can, by his act, bind the firm. Like we have discussed, all partners are having equal authority because in a partnership firm, all members are principal as well as agents of each other. Okay, all members are principal as well, all partners are principal as well as agents of each other. That means all have equal authority to bind each other. But can one member of Hindu undivided family bind the other member of Hindu undivided family? Let us see. The Karta or the manager has the authority to contract for the family business and the other members in the family. But in the case of Hindu undivided family, this power is enjoyed exclusively by Karta and not by anyone else. Only Karta can bind the family members by his actions and no one else. Okay, so other members are not agents of the family, Hindu undivided family, only Karta can do so. Karta is the managing partner. Okay, Karta or the managing partner, managing member of the family has the authority to bind the other people. No other member. Okay, there is no inter agency. Oh, sorry, no intra agency or no mutual agency, principal agency relationship in a Hindu undivided family. Members are simply members, and only Karta is a kind of a managing partner. In this way, we can understand Hindu undivided family is somehow like a company in which managing partner, sorry, in which managing director MD is taking all the issues, all the concerns, and these shareholders, these other members are like shareholders. They can vote on certain aspects, but key decisions will be taken by the managing director. Like, and here Karta. Liability. In a partnership, the liability of a partner is unlimited. Like we discussed, partnership is not a separate legal entity. There is no separate legal face of a partnership. The face of the partnership is the face of partners. Okay, partner. There is no corporate wheel between partners and the partnership. Okay, so there is a see-through window between a partnership and partners. So they partnership and partners, they both are one and the same thing. So the liability of a partnership is unlimited, thereby meaning that liability of members is also going to be unlimited. Even their personal assets are susceptible to attachment in case the partnership is not able to fulfill its legal obligation, not able to discharge its legal and financial obligations. Even the personal estate of a partner is liable to be attached in such cases. Okay, we can understand it in comparison with the company. In company, the liability of the company is always unlimited. Okay, but there is a corporate wheel between company and the members, which says company will have unlimited liability, but the members shall have unlimited liability. Okay, the liability of a company is unlimited always and always, but the members' liability is limited. Similar in the case, the partnership's liability is unlimited, but there is no such corporate wheel separating partners and partnership. Therefore, this liability falls upon the partners as well. So, partners' liability becomes unlimited in this case as well. But let us see the case of Hindu undivided family. It is also like a company, like I said. In Hindu undivided family, only the liability of Karta is unlimited, and the other co-partners are liable only to the extent of their share in the profits of the family business. Thus, understand it like a company. In company, if the directors, board of directors, or the managing director is taking some malicious decision, some erroneous decision, his liability will become unlimited in that case. Okay, if he has taken some malicious decisions, his liability will become unlimited in those cases. Similar is the case with Karta. The Karta's liability, because he is the managing partner, managing person of the family, his personal liability is unlimited. Okay, his personal liability is unlimited. Karta, you can say Karta is the company here. Karta is the company. Company's liability is unlimited, and all the members are shareholders. Okay, so other members, their liability is limited to their shareholding, that's it. But Karta being the company, his liability shall stay unlimited. So Karta's liability is unlimited, but other people, their shareholding is limited. Their liability is limited to the shareholding in the family business. Calling for accounts. A partner can bring a suit against the firm for accounts provided he also seeks the dissolution of firm. Now, every partner in the partnership firm is entitled to inspect the books of accounts of the partnership, because partnership is dependent upon distribution of profits. Okay, when there is a distribution of profits, in order to ensure that profits are being distributed in a fair manner, a partner in a partnership has a right. Okay, a partner in a partnership has a right to inspect the accounts of partnership as and when he wants, and in case he is denied inspection, he is not allowed to see the books of accounts, then he has a authority, he has a right to seek inspection of the accounts, but he can do so only if he also seeks the dissolution of partnership at the same time. Okay, at the same time. While in the Hindu undivided family, on the separation of the joint family, a member is not entitled to ask for account of the family business because now he has got separated. Okay, when a member has got separated, first of all, no one can seek the dissolution of Hindu undivided family. He can only seek separation of his share from the family. He may say, one member in the Hindu undivided family may say that I do not wish to continue with this Hindu undivided family and wish to separate myself. He can seek his individual partition, his share to be given to him. Okay, his share will be given to him, but he cannot seek the accounts. Okay, he cannot inspect the accounts. Governing law. What are the laws which govern both these entities? Okay. A partnership is governed by the Indian Partnership Act 1932, like we discussed in the beginning of this particular subject. Similarly, a Hindu undivided family, or call it a joint Hindu family, both mean same. Business is governed by the Hindu law. Okay, that business is governed by the Hindu law, Hindu customary laws, whatever are the laws applicable to the particular family. Like we have different schools of the Hindu law. We have Mitakshara school, we have Dayabhaga school. Back there in the south, we have Dravida school. Okay, so whatever school, Banaras school is also there. So whatever school is applicable to, I mean, the family is follower of whatever school, whatever rules are applicable on that particular school of thought will be applicable upon that Hindu undivided family. Minor's capacity. What is the capacity of a minor in both the entities, HUF as well as partnership? Let us read. In a partnership, a minor cannot become a partner, like we discussed, because partnership arises out of a contract or an agreement, and since a minor cannot is not competent to enter into an agreement or contract, he cannot be a partner in a partnership firm. But still, a partner can be admitted to the benefits of partnership only with the consent of all partners. If all partners have given a consent, a minor can become a partner of the partnership, but with no liability, with zero liability, only for profits. He can take the profits, but liability cannot be fastened upon him. He cannot take the liabilities. Okay, that is the minor's capacity in a partnership. In the case of a Hindu undivided family, in Hindu undivided family business, a minor becomes a member of the ancestral business by the incidence of birth. He does not have to wait for attaining majority. Okay. In HUF, the moment a child is born, he gets a share. Okay. The moment a child is born, he is entitled to seek the share of his father. Okay. Suppose I today have an assets of 2 crore rupees. The moment my son is born, he is entitled to those assets. Okay, he is entitled to my assets. When I'll die, I leave those assets for him. He is entitled, no one else can claim those assets then. Everyone else is excluded if my son is there, if my daughter is alive. Everyone else is excluded to claim the share. They are entitled to my share right from the birth. They do not wait for attaining majority. Even if they are minor and something happens to me and I leave for the heavenly abode, I am no more. Then also my share will go on to those minors. Okay, other members of the family cannot say that we will take this share because they are minor. No, they can only manage till the time do not attain majority, but ultimately they are going to be the shareholders. They are going to be the one who will inherit my share. That is the law on minor in case of Hindu undivided family. Continuity. A firm subject to a contract between the partners get dissolved by death or insolvency of a partner. Now, what is the continuity of a partnership firm? Partnership firm will come to an end upon insolvency of a partner. Why? Because an insolvent cannot be a partner, because an insolvent cannot enter into a contract. When someone cannot enter into a contract, he cannot become a partner. So, an insolvent person will automatically be out of the partnership, and when he will be out of the partnership will come to an end. Similar is the case of death. When someone will die, he will be out of the partnership, and because partnership was originally between 2 3 people, now one is dead, so the partnership will come to an end. But let us see in the case of Hindu undivided family. A Hindu undivided family business has the continuity till it is divided. Till it is divided, the status of joint Hindu family is not thereby affected by the death of a member. Member may die, member may born, okay, and some member may seek partition, they may go away, but till the time family remains together, most of the family remains together, Hindu undivided family will continue. The only way to bring an end to the Hindu undivided family is to seek a division. When all the shareholders, all the members say that we all want our share and we all want separation, that is the way how a Hindu undivided family is murdered or killed or brought to an end. Let us say it in a more nice way, is brought to an end. Numbers of members. In case of partnership, number of members should not exceed 50. Okay, like we discussed the rules of company law rules 2013 now provide a limit of 50 partners, maximum partners in a partnership firm. But in the case of Hindu undivided family, there is no limit. It is like a public company. Unlimited number of members can be a part of Hindu undivided family. The only requirement is that they should be part of the family, and how they become part of the family, either by marriage or adoption or birth. Okay, either by marriage or adoption or birth, they will become part of Hindu undivided family, otherwise not. Okay, so this is the only criteria. If you are a part of Hindu undivided family, it is immaterial how many members are there, it is unlimited. It is just like the public company, unlimited members. Share in the business. In a partnership, each partner has a defined share by virtue of an agreement between the partners. Okay, because when partnership come to an end, we have discussed it, that it comes out of an agreement. When the partners have an agreement between each other, that partnership will begin, and then they have a share as well, that I will have this much share, you will have that much share. So the share is pre-decided and predetermined and final unless and until it is reviewed and increased or decreased later on. But usually the share is fixed in a partnership firm. But in the case of a Hindu undivided family, the share is never fixed. It keeps on changing. It increases with the death of a member and it decreases with the birth of a new member. Okay. So when a member dies, his share goes on to other members. So the share increases upon death and the share decreases upon birth of a new member. So this is the case of, this was the distinction between Hindu undivided family and the partnership. Okay, we'll take a 1 minute break here. Meanwhile, you give it a reading. Now, the next kind of discussion distinction is going to be between a partnership and co-ownership and partnership versus association. You people give it a reading and then we will join within a minute or two. partnership versus co-ownership or joint ownership. Okay, now partnership versus co-ownership or joint ownership. So the first basis of differentiation is upon the formation. How a partnership is formed. Let us see. Partnership always arises out of a contract, express or implied. Now we have discussed this a lot number of times. Okay. But a co-ownership. How a co-ownership may arise? A co-ownership may arise either from the agreement or by the operation of law, such as by inheritance. Law of inheritance, like when I leave, my children automatically become co-owners of the share. Okay, they automatically become co-owner of my property. That is the law of inheritance. Or it may arise by an agreement. Two people may agree to co-own a property. Okay, and they are deriving rent out of it. Okay, but they do not become partners, they are co-owners. Or two people may agree to hold or to provide a loan to someone, a financial assistance to someone, and they may equally distribute the interest deriving out of such loan activity. But they are merely co-owners, they are not partners. Okay. Now, implied agency. A partner is the agent of other partner because the partnership works upon the basis of mutual agency between partners. But in the case of co-ownership, a co-owner is not the agent of other co-owner. There is no such thing like mutual agency between owners, co-owners at all. Every owner is independent, okay? No one binds each other. No, neither of them is the agent, nor one of them is a principal. So both of them are independent. There is no such implied agency or express agency between these co-owners at all. Nature of interest. There is community of interest, which means that profit and losses must have to be shared. Okay, there is a community of interest. All of the partners are having interest in the partnership, which means they have interest in the profit as well as in the loss. They will share the profit plus they will share the losses as well. But in the case of co-ownership, it does not necessarily involve sharing of profits and losses. Okay, sharing of profits and losses. A tenant may get only, or a landlord may get only the rent. Okay, and the tenant may derive higher profits, but landlord may get only a fixed rent. Okay, this is a kind of shareholding plus losses. It is not relevant. Other partner may not suffer the loss. One co-owner may suffer the loss, other co-owner may not suffer the loss. It all depends on the case to case basis. There is nothing fixed. There may be sharing of profits and sharing of losses in the co-ownership as well, but it depends on case to case basis. But when we talk about partnership, it is a must requirement. Anytime there has to be a community of interest between partners. Transfer of interest. A share in the partnership is transferred only by the consent of other partners. When all partners agree that yes, one partner may be allowed to transfer his shares, then they will agree also on to whom such transfer can be made. They will not only decide that this partner is allowed to leave, but they will also decide that this partner will be substituted by whom. Okay, they have a exclusive control and a very tight control over that. But a co-owner may transfer his interest or rights in the property without the consent of other co-owner. There is no such requirement or the consent of the other co-owner at all. Okay, only thing is that you must ask your co-owner that in case you want to buy my share, if he is not willing, then you can sell it openly in the market. Partnership versus association. Partnership means and involves setting up relation of agency. Now we are discussing, sorry, we are discussing now, I must tell you, we are discussing partnership versus association. Okay, now we are done with the partnership and co-ownership. Now we are discussing distinction between partnership and association. A partnership means and involves setting up relation of agency between two or more persons who have entered into a business for gains with the intention to share the profits of such business. An association evolves out of social cause where there is no necessarily motive to earn and share profits. The intention is not to enter into business for gains. Association is a very wide term. Association means association, two people coming together. But for what purpose are they coming together? They may be coming together for a commercial purpose, then it will become a partnership. They may be coming together for a charitable or a social purpose, then it will become a non-profit organization. Okay, so it all depends upon, or there may be just a debating group. Association may be of any type, any nature. Association itself is a very vague word. We cannot discuss association, okay, without we know what kind of association this is. There may be a literary association where people are discussing literature, okay. Examples: partnership to run a business and earn profit thereon is a partnership. Members of charitable society or religious association or an improvement scheme or building corporation or a mutual insurance society or a trade protection association, they are all associations. Okay, associations are unlimited number of ways. It can be of any way. Okay. Now we'll go to kind of partners, and this flow chart discusses what we are, gives a window, a peeping window as to what we are going to discuss. Okay, give it a look and then we will start. Kinds of partnership. With regard to duration, if we split the kind of partnership into two sub classifications, first one is with regard to duration, other one will be with regard to the extent of business. Then we further declassify both kind of partnerships into two partnership each, that is partnership at will, and another one is partnership for a fixed period within regard to duration. And with regard to business, that is particular partnership or a general partnership. Now let us discuss these. Partnership at will. According to section 7 of the act, let us now highlight this section 7. According to section 7 of the act, partnership at will is partnership when at will, first of all understand, at will. At will means at choice. Okay, so you can say partnership at choice or partnership at will. So now what is this kind of partnership? No fixed period has been agreed upon for the duration of partnership. Duration means when the partnership will come to end. Duration means when partnership will come to end. So now we have not discussed any time frame for such. Okay. Let us do the business until the time we are able to do the business. Let us keep doing it. This is a kind of partnership at will. Okay. Another one is there is no provision made as to the determination of partnership. There is no provision. When it is at will, when something we are saying something is at choice or at will, then that means there is no time frame decided for bringing something to an end. So this kind of partnership is referred to as a partnership at will, when you are having no agreement as to when we will put an end to this partnership or when till when this partnership shall continue. These two conditions must be satisfied before a partnership can be regarded as a partnership at will. So these two conditions are there, okay? That no fixed period and there is no provision as to determination of partnership. But where there is an agreement between the partners, either for duration of the partnership or for the determination of partnership, the partnership is not partnership at will. Okay, if there is such provision, it will cease to be a partnership at will, it may be something else. Okay, where a partnership entered into for fixed term is continued after the expiry of such term, it is to be treated as having become a partnership at will. Okay, so initially Ram, Shyam, and Shiva, the three enter into a partnership and decided that it shall continue. Okay, if Ram, Sham, and Shiva, they all three come together and set up a partnership and they decide that this partnership shall continue in business for another 5 years. Okay, then this partnership is going to be called as a fixed partnership. But after the expiry of those 5 years, they feel that no, we should continue this partnership, we should not stop it. Then, after those 5 years, if the partnership okay, even if after those 5 years this partnership is continued, then this kind of partnership will be known as partnership at will. Okay, so this is partnership at will when there is no fixed duration, there is no provision for determination. Okay, no provision for determination or no fixed duration and you are continuing with the business. Usually all kind of partnerships are, not all, usually majority of partnerships are partnership at will. Okay, majority of those partnership where there is no return agreement, okay, are partnership at will. So this is a big class of partnership. A partnership at will may be dissolved by any partner by giving notice in writing to all the partners of his intention to dissolve the same. If any one of the partner wants to leave, he can give the notice because this is a partnership at will, partnership at choice. So if someone chooses not no longer to be part of a partnership, he can give his notice that I want to bring an end to my part in the partnership, and therefore automatically the whole partnership will come to an end. Okay, the whole partnership will come to an end. This is partnership at will. Partnership for a fixed period, like we discussed in the earlier example, that Ram, Sham, and Shiva, they open up a partnership and then they decide that the partnership shall continue for a period of 5 years. In that case, the partnership is going to be a fixed partnership. Okay, so any partnership in which the time duration is fixed or the event on which the partnership shall come to an end, it is pre-decided, then this is a case of a fixed partnership. Okay, where a provision is made by contract for the duration of the partnership. The partnership is called particular for fixed partnership or fixed partnership. Okay, it is a partnership created for a particular period of time. Such a partnership comes to an end on the early expiry of fixed period. Okay, because it is provided in a written agreement, then the partnership will automatically come to an end. This is the case of fixed partnership. Then there is a particular partnership. Other kind of partnership is particular partnership. A partnership which may be organized for the prosecution of a single adventure as well as for the conduct of a continuous partnership, continuous business. Where a person becomes a partner with another person in any particular adventure or undertaking, the partnership is called a particular partnership. A partnership constituted for a single adventure or undertaking is subject to any agreement dissolved by completion of the adventure or undertaking. Okay, now let us understand it with the help of an example. The Tamil Nadu Authority Tamil Nadu government, that is, and the central government, they both enter into a partnership for the construction of a bullet train project running between Kanyakumari and Chennai or Chennai and Madurai. Okay, so this is a kind of a partnership which is called a fixed partnership. Why? Because the partnership will automatically come to an end. Because the word adventure is written here. Okay, so I'm using adventure, but this could be project as well, no issues. So, okay, so the partnership between Tamil Nadu government and the central government shall automatically come to an end. When it shall automatically come to an end? Upon the completion of the project, either the project has been completed or termination of the project, that the termination was dismissed, sorry, the agreement was dismissed, that we no longer wish to set up bullet train project, so the partnership will automatically come to an end. Or right now, like we have an event called IPL, Indian Premier League. Okay, so various companies come together for a partnership that we will broadcast the Indian Premier League on our channel. Okay, like Star Sport and Hotstar, they will enter into a partnership that till the time IPL is going on, we will both telecast the IPL. So, upon the completion of IPL or the termination of the IPL, when the BCCI decides that this year we will not host IPL, or they decide that let us terminate the IPL is completed, then in such case the partnership will automatically come to an end. These kinds of partnerships are known as particular partnerships. Okay. General partnership. General partnership, where a partnership is constituted with respect to business in general. It is called a general partnership. A general partnership is different from a particular partnership. In the case of particular partnership, the liability of the partners extends only to that of particular adventure or undertaking, but it is not in case of a general partnership. Okay, so general partnership is when two or more people or two or more entities come together for business in general. Okay, that we will do business together. Whatever business we will do, we'll do together. Either we'll do finance business or we'll do car dealership or bike spare parts or online trading. Whatever business we will do it together only. There is no such particular business fixed. Okay, no business is fixed. Whatever real estate business or road construction or airport management, whatever ports management, shipping, courier, whatever business we want to start up, we can start up, and the partnership will continue to take on such businesses. Okay, such kind of partnership is called a general partnership. But the distinguishing feature between particular partnership and general partnership is the liability and the agency of principal and agent. Okay, in this general partnership, any act regarding any business will bind the general partnership. Okay, because it is a partnership for general business, all businesses, whatever business you want to do, you can do 4, 5, 6, 9, 10 number of businesses together, or you can fix yourself to one business and then you can join another business one by one. So whatever a partner will do in relation to a business will bind the general partnership because you are not having any fixed business. Okay, but in the case of a particular partnership, because it is for a fixed purpose and a fixed business, the business is fixed, like construction of a bullet train or the Indian Premier League telecast. So in that case, the conduct of the another partner or co-partner in regarding to metro train or the Indian Premier League will bind the other partner as well, but not his conduct. Otherwise, suppose the other partner in the metro rail project, Tamil Nadu government is taking another project with the Gujarat government or the Karnataka government for construction of a dam at a Kaveri river. Okay, so their activities at the Kaveri River will not impact the central government's liability in the metro train project. Why? Because they are particular partnerships for a fixed period plus, no, not a fixed period, for a fixed kind of business. So this is the distinguishing feature between a particular partnership as well as a general partnership. Now we'll begin with the partnership deed. Meanwhile, you give it a reading and then we will join within 2 or 3 minutes.
It's 4 o'clock.
Now we will discuss what is partnership deed. Partnership is result of an agreement. Okay. No particular formalities are required for an agreement of partnership. It may be in writing or formed verbally. But it is desirable to have a partnership agreement in writing to avoid future disputes, because if you are having everything in written, definitely you are entering into a commercial activity and disputes will happen between two partners. They are bound to happen. So, how will you determine those businesses in the future? Okay, with the help of the written provisions of the agreement. So, it is always advisable to have a written agreement in order to avoid any future business disputes between the partners and to keep the partnership smooth. So, the document in writing containing the various terms and conditions as to the partnership of the partners to each other is called partnership deed. Now, this written document on which you write down your partnership terms and conditions, okay, it is called as partnership deed in law. It should be drafted with care and stamped according to the provisions of Stamp Act 1899. Where the partnership comprises immovable property, the instrument of partnership must be in writing, stamped, and registered under the Registration Act. Okay, now this is a key thing here, that if you are entering into a partnership, you may or may not have a partnership deed. It is advisable to have a partnership deed, but you may even not have it. But where the partnership comprises of immovable property, okay, where you are dealing in the suppose construction sector, you are going to buy flats and sell them, they are immovable property. So if your partnership is going to be regarding immovable property, the instrument of partnership must, legally it is essential to have it in writing, and it must be stamped and registered under the Registration Act. Otherwise you can not have a partnership which is dealing with immovable properties. It will be illegal, okay, because the law requires any dealing with the immovable property to be in writing as well as in registered manner. Further, partnership deed may contain the following information. Okay, so this is just kind of a brief introduction to partnership deed. You may or may not have it, plus, this is a format which you may adopt when drafting a partnership deed. It is not mandatory to have all of them, but it is advisable to have it in this particular manner. Okay, so these are the contents: name of the partnership. This is not form, this is firm. So you must decide the name of your partnership firm, that what you are going to call your partnership firm. Thereafter, you must enter the names of the partners who are going to be the partners in the firm. Nature and place of the business of the firm. This is very key aspect, okay? Because the place of the business firm is going to decide where cases can be filed against you, okay? In the civil law, cases can be filed only against the firm where the place of business is there. So if your place of business is in Chennai, cases can be filed against you in courts at Chennai only, not in Delhi. Okay, so this will save you a lot of harassment later on. Plus the nature of partnership. What kind of partnership it is? Is it a partnership at will, or it is a fixed partnership, or it is a partnership for a particular project or a general partnership, and we have discussed how things can matter a lot depending upon the type of partnership you are having. So it is very relevant to enter the nature of partnership plus place of the business of the firm, then date of the commencement of the partnership. This is also another key factor, date of the partnership of the firm. Why? Because by entering the date of commencement of partnership, you are going to finalize that from what date one partner is going to bind another partner. Okay, and you can even avoid the previous actions of a partner which may hold you legally bound if you are not having a dated partnership. If your partnership has no such date, uh, no such date of commencement, then the previous acts of your co-partner can make you bound because now you are in a partnership and partners hold each other as a in the relationship of a principal and agent. Okay, so it is also very key. Duration of the partnership. What is going to be the duration of the partnership? It depends upon the case to case basis. Okay, and it is always very important to enter into a duration in case you want a fixed partnership. Otherwise, your liability will continue to go on in case you are not having a fixed duration of the partnership, because your partnership will not come to an end upon a duration and you will continue to be partners for unlimited number of days, and you will become ultimately liable to whatever your co-partner is acting in the course of business, even if you people are no longer partners, but because your partnership has not come to an end as there was no date decided, you will be deemed to be a partner and your liability will keep on continuing. Capital contribution of each partner. This is also another key point, because capital contribution will decide tomorrow when you are going to liquidate your partnership firm, you are going to dissolve your partnership firm. See, every partnership comes to an end. So tomorrow when your partnership will come to an end, how do you distribute the assets of the partnership? Okay, it will depend heavily upon the capital contribution, how much capital at the start of partnership each partner had brought in. So tomorrow if there is some unfair distribution, you can definitely challenge that distribution in law. Okay, by showing these agreements, these capital contributions. Otherwise, it is going to be a very tough task for you to show that the distribution of the assets of the partnership upon the dissolution of partnership of the firm is unequal or unjust. Okay, so it is very much advisable not to have written but to have such clauses, because they are going to save you a lot of embarrassment on the later day. Profit sharing ratio of the partners. Okay, it is also another important aspect that you must have it in writing. What is going to be the profit sharing ratio of each partner, how you are going to distribute the profits if some case this partnership is making a profit, then how you are going to share the profits. Plus you can also add profit as well as loss sharing. You can have a loss sharing ratio as well, but it is not mandatory, but you may write in case you want to have a different loss sharing ratio and different profit sharing ratio. Usually it is the same. Okay, if you are going to share profits equally, you will have to share losses equally. Okay, so your profit sharing ratio ultimately becomes a loss sharing ratio, but in case someone wants to have a different profit sharing ratio and a different loss sharing ratio, then he can get it mentioned separately in the agreement. Admission and retirement of a partner. Okay, how you have to add new partners in the partnership firm. Sometimes you may feel like adding new partners because other partner may become too old to carry on the business, or he may die, or he may become mentally unsound, or he may become insolvent, or there may be n number of cases in which a partner may be compelled to leave the partnership firm. And in that case, how will you handle the admission of a new partner as well as a retirement of a partner or the death of a partner? Okay, because ultimately if you are not going to write it down that upon the retirement or the death of a partner, the partnership firm will behave in this and that manner and continue with this particular way of existence, then ultimately with the retirement or with the death, the partnership is going to come to an end. Okay, like we have discussed, generally partnership is usually a relationship of trust and faith between the initial partners. Okay, all the partners. So when one of the partner is died, that means one person is now less in that agreement. So now agreement will come to an end unless you have it in writing that how it will continue upon such a contingency. Provision for settlement of accounts in case of dissolution of the firm. Okay, you should have provisions for settlement of account. How you people are going to settle the accounts in case of the dissolution of the firm? If firm is going to be dissolved, how you people will distribute the assets of the firm? Okay, the distribution of assets of the firm. What is the manner? Are you going to appoint an independent authority for valuation, or if you give the power to the managing partner, or you will reach the court for a settlement? How you will decide it? Okay, you can have it in writing in the initially. Provision for salaries, commissions payable to the partners, if any. Okay, if you want that all partners shall take salary, then you can put in salary. Or if you want that two partners shall share the profit, other partner will have some profit but a salary, then you can put them in writing. Or if some commissions, because one partner is bringing a lot of business, other partner is not bringing that quantity of business, so sharing of equal profit will become unfair. So the partner which is bringing more profit to the firm will definitely have some extra share in the way of commissions over every client he has brought to the firm. Okay, so these commissions for partners you may have it in writing. Provisions for expulsion of a partner in case of gross breach of duty and fraud. Okay, provisions for dismissal of a partner or expulsion of a partner in case of gross breach of duty or corruption. If he has done something corrupt, or he has done something fraud, or if he is acting in the against the interest of the partnership, in those events, how do you dismiss a partner? If you have not got it in writing, then it will become very difficult for you to dismiss a partner from a partnership firm without the dissolution of the firm. Okay, because if you do not do so, then whatever frauds or breach the partner is going to commit, you are ultimately going to be liable for that, because you people are having a principal and agent relationship qua each other. So this is very relevant that you should have a dismissal procedure as well, so that it does not affect the existence of the firm, plus it does not affect the liabilities of the firm as well if some particular partner is acting against the interest of the firm, or in a fraudulent or a corrupt manner. Further, these provisions are not permanent. If you have got them in writing, it is not that you cannot later on change them. By the consent of all the partners, you can later on add or delete some of the provisions. Okay, this is a very flexible thing, but you must have at least these provisions. You may add more provisions suitable to your business activity, but these are the least minimum provisions which you should contain in your partnership firm. Now we are going on the next leg of partnership, which is based upon different types of partners. Okay, what type of partners are there? How many types of partners are there? This is a flow chart. You read it and we will begin the discussion within a minute or two. So now with the help of this flow chart, we'll try to understand how many types of partners are there. The first and foremost is definitely going to be an active partner, the partner who is active. Then there's another one, nominal partner. Then a sub partner, outgoing partner, sleeping or dormant partner, partner in profits only, incoming partner, partner by holding out. Okay, so these eight type of partners are given here. Okay, now let us understand each partner one by one. Now, what is an active or actual or ostensible partner? Ostensible means something which is visible. Ostensible means something which is visible. So, who is visible? The one who is active and actual. He is always visible. Other partners are not as ostensible, as visible as a sleeping or a dormant partner. Okay. So, active partner is it's a person who has become a partner by agreement. Okay. Someone who is a partner, definitely, if he's a partner, he has become a partner by agreement only, and who actively participates in the conduct of the partnership. Okay, who actively participates. He may be a managing partner or he may not be a managing partner. But whatever he is, whatever his role is, he is taking that role hands on. He is very much active in that role. Okay, suppose someone is tasked with handling the media. So he is actively taking part in the handling of the media and public relations skills of the partnership firm, or someone is tasked with the procurement, so that partner is taking active interest in the procurement for the firm, so that partner becomes an active partner who is taking active interest in the running of the firm, operation of the firm. That is called an active partner. He acts as an agent of other partners for all the acts done in the ordinary course of business. In the event of his retirement, he must give a public notice in order to absolve himself of liabilities for the acts of other partners done after his retirement. Okay, so he's an active partner. Okay, and because of his activeness, whatever he does in his field of business, okay, or his responsible field for the firm, he will bind the firm and the all other partners as well, because we have a mutual agency between partners. Similarly, he, because he has been a very active partner, when he retires from the partnership firm or he goes out of the partnership firm, he must give a public notice of his doing so. He must give a public notice that I am retiring from the partnership, I am no longer a part of partnership, so that tomorrow he is not again held liable for whatever acts has been done by the partnership firm after he has ceased to be a partner. Okay, so definitely he will, his role will one day come to an end, so he must give a public notice. If he has not given a public notice, he will continue to be treated as an active partner of the firm, and whatever decision firm will take, whatever liabilities firm will incur, this active partner, who is no longer a partner of the firm now after his retirement, will still be held liable and responsible for the liabilities of the firm, due to the fact because he has not given a public notice, and public, whichever public is dealing with the firm, they have a belief that he is still a partner. Okay, now why this is so is because people work upon the basis of personal relationship. So suppose I am a partner of some firm, XYZ firm. Okay, now I go a lot and deal with the people. Okay, and I have fulfilled a lot of contracts. So now other parties are willing to give contracts to my firm, depending upon my reputation and my dependency. So now I have retired and they do not know it. I have not given a public notice, and they still believe that I am also a part of the firm. So, believing upon me, they have given these new contracts to the firm. Okay, but I have left the firm, and the firm is now not able to perform the contracts in the manner as it used to perform when I was a partner. So, it has incurred some liabilities, and people have suffered some losses. People dealing with the firm have suffered some losses. So, now they have a reason to hold this liability upon me as well, because they gave these contracts believing me to be a partner. Okay, because they had a personal relation with me, they believed in my potential, they believed in my capacity. Okay, but now I have left the firm, but I did not give them a notice, I did not inform them. So when they enter into a partnership relationship with our partnership, commercial relationship, and they suffer loss, then I must also be made liable, because the contract came because of me, or my reputation had a role in bringing this contract to the firm. Okay, so this is why a public notice is very mandatory for a sleeping or for an active partner. Okay, because he is an ostensible partner, he is the visible partner, people rely upon him and his skill set. Sleeping or a dormant partner who does not actively take part in the conduct of the partnership business. Okay, now there must be some partner. Okay, sorry, not there must be, there may be some partner who has brought in capital with him. Okay, who has brought in a capital, or suppose say goodwill. Okay, who has brought a goodwill or has brought a capital. Like we want, four people want to set up a partnership firm, but we do not have our money, so we enter a fifth person as a partner, and he says I will sponsor you people and I'll take this much share in the profits, but you people will have to carry on the business. I will not take active part into the business, I'll just enjoy the profits because I am infusing the initial capital in your partnership firm. So this kind of a person may be a sleeping partner or a dormant partner, because he is not actively involved in the business of the firm. He has done his role, that is, he has supplied the capital to the firm. Okay, but he is no longer required for the business. Maybe he is not professionally qualified enough, or he is not taking interest. That is left to the personal choice of the partner. So this is how we get our concept of sleeping partner. Okay, they are called as sleeping or dormant. Okay, dormant means something which is inactive. They share profits and losses and are liable to third parties for all the acts of the firm. They are, however, not required to give public notice of their retirement from the firm. Okay, so because they are partners, because he's a partner, maybe a sleeping partner, it doesn't matter, he'll get the share in the profits and he'll have to suffer the losses as well. And as long as he's the partner, maybe sleeping or not, he will share the liabilities of the firm, okay, because just because of the fact because he's a partner. But when he retires, okay, he does not need to give a public notice to people that I am retiring from the firm, because nobody actually knows him. He is not ostensible, he is not an active partner. So whatever business is coming to the firm, people are not relying upon the reputation of this sleeping partner. They actually even do not know that any such partner exists in the firm. So when his existence is never an issue, so when he leaves, when he retires, so it should not be much debatable for other people as well. So he's not required to give a public notice when he retires. And when he retires, after his retirement, all the liabilities contracted by the firm shall not devolve upon the retiring partner as well. Okay, he's not supposed to give the public notice. If he gives, that is a good thing. If he does not, that is also okay legally, because he's a sleeping partner. Then there is someone who's known as a nominal partner. A person who lends his name to the firm without having any real interest in it is called a nominal partner. Okay, a partner or a person who lends his name to the firm. He is not entitled to share the profits of the firm. Neither he invests in the firm nor takes part in the conduct of the business. He is, however, liable to third parties for all the acts of the firm. He is, however, liable to all the parties who have acts for the acts of the firm, because he is a partner, but he is usually a nominal partner. Okay, we'll just understand it with the help of an example. Now there's a person called Ratan Tata. He's a world famous personality. Everybody knows him. Okay. Now his nephew. Nobody knows his nephew. Okay. Or some people may be knowing his nephew, but his nephew is definitely not having a wide recognition like of Ratan Tata. So when his nephew starts up a new venture and some of his friends start up a new venture, they want a commercial edge. Okay, they want a commercial edge in the business. How do they get a commercial edge? They then ask the uncle Ratan Tata to lend his name as a partner, so that this new partnership firm gets a sudden credibility in the market. It does not have to prove itself with the test of time. Okay, anyone who knows Ratan Tata will understand that if Ratan Tata's name is attached to the firm is going to be a good firm, the firm is going to be a principled firm. Okay, so Ratan Tata lends his name. He is not taking any profits or shares or losses at all, not salary, nothing. He's not even actively involved in the business of the firm, but because of his name, a lot of work is coming to the firm. And if firm is suffering losses and other parties are also suffering losses due to the firm's activity, the liabilities of the firm will automatically devolve upon the nominal partner, that is, suppose say Ratan Tata, because it is due to the reputation and credit worthiness of Ratan Tata or the nominal partner that so much business has come to the partner. So because of his effect, okay, when he retires, he is supposed to give a public notice. It is mandatory that when he retires, he should give a public notice. Otherwise, upon even after his retirement, whatever the firm does, he'll continue to be liable for the actions. Okay, he'll continue to be liable for his actions. Sorry, not for his actions, but actions of the firm. Partner in profits only. A partner who is entitled to share the profits only without being liable for the losses is known as partner for profits only and is liable to the third parties for all acts of profits only. Okay, for all acts of profits only. So a partner in profit usually someone who takes part only in profits. Okay, but does not suffer losses. Okay, he is not a partner of losses. So whatever loss a partnership will face, he is not part of that. He is not held liable for that. So whatever third party, whatever liabilities this third party is going to, oh sorry, the partnership firm is going to take with the other parties. Okay, he is going to be liable for that provided the partnership firm is making profit from such relationships. If the partnership firm is having a relationship with another entity and they are suffering loss, then he is not entitled to, sorry, that then he is not liable for that contract and he is not liable to suffer the losses as well, but he is liable to parties when the partnership firm has suffered profits. So okay, so partnership firm has entered into a contract, they have derived the profits, but if the partnership firm is not following the contract, then this partner in profits will be liable. Incoming partner, a person who is admitted to as a partner into an already existing firm with the consent of all the existing partners is called as incoming partner. Such a partner is not liable for any act of the firm done before his admission as a partner. Outgoing partner, a partner who leaves a firm in which the rest of the partners continue to carry on the business, is called a retiring or outgoing partner. Such a partner remains liable to third parties for all acts of the firm until public notice is given for his retirement. Okay, this is just like incoming call and outgoing call. So when something comes to your phone, it is called incoming call. Something goes out of phone, it is called outgoing call. Similar is the case of incoming partner and outgoing partner. When a partner joins the firm, he is called as incoming partner. When a partner goes out of the firm, he is called as outgoing partner. Another is a concept of partner by holding out. Partner by holding out is also known as a partnership by estoppel. Estoppel is a principle of the law in which one person is not allowed to retract, or withdraw from his earlier action or his earlier consent or his earlier stand. He is not allowed now. If someone has taken a stand, he must suffer the fruits or the thrones of that stand. So, a partner by holding out is also known as a partnership by estoppel. Okay, where a man holds himself out as a partner or allows others to do it. Where a man holds himself out as a partner, where a man himself tells someone that I am a partner in the firm, though he is actually not a partner, but he behaves like a partner in the firm or allows to allows others to do it, or allows others, let other partners of the firm treat him as a partner of the firm despite him not being a partner. He is then stopped from denying the character he has assumed and upon the faith of which creditors may be presumed to have acted. A person may himself, by his words or conduct, have induced others to believe that he is a partner, or he may have allowed others to represent him as a partner. This result in both cases is identical. Okay. Suppose now we discuss the case of Ratan Tata. Now, Ratan Tata's nephew has started a partnership firm for construction. Okay, real estate construction. He goes on TV and says that Ratan Tata, my uncle Ratan Tata, is also a partner of the firm. Okay, he goes on the newspaper and says, my uncle Ratan Tata is also a partner of the firm, and Ratan Tata does not deny it. Okay, Ratan Tata does not deny it. Now, believing upon this statement, okay, now Ratan Tata's nephew goes on the public TV and public print and says that I have set up a construction firm, you give the contract to us. My uncle Ratan Tata is the partner and he is foreseeing all the projects, he is an active part and this and that, and he will guarantee so and so. Now people believe this statement and they watch the actions of Ratan Tata. Ratan Tata reads the newspaper. The newspaper is in headlines. The news is in the headlines for 3 4 days, but Ratan Tata does not comment over it. He does not denies it. He does not acknowledge it. Acknowledges it. He remains silent. Okay. So now a lot of people start believing that actually Ratan Tata is a part of the is a partner of this newly set up firm, and also because he is his nephew. Nephew is making such a statement, so it is natural for a uncle to be partner of a nephew's firm. Okay, then a lot of contracts are awarded, the firm collapses, and a lot of liabilities are upon the firm's head. Now, firm is liquidated, partners are liquidated, still a lot of liabilities meant to be paid, but all the partners are have cashed out. There is no cash or no assets left with the partners. Now, people can definitely chase Ratan Tata for unpaid amount, and Ratan Tata cannot say, I am not liable because I am not a partner, and my nephew made a statement, why should I become a partner? Okay, because Ratan Tata did not deny it. If he was not the partner, he should have come out in open and denied these allegations that I am not a partner. If you are dealing with this firm, deal at your own risk. I have nothing to do with this newly set up firm by my nephew, and my nephew is lying when he says I am a partner. But if Ratan Tata did not do this and people believe, and because of his reputation, people enter into a business with a firm and the loss is there, then Ratan Tata has to make good for those losses. X and Y are partners in a partnership firm. X introduced a manager, as his partner to Z. X introduced A. A is a manager in the firm of X and Y, but he introduced him to Z as a partner. A remained silent. A did not say anything. Z, a trader believing A as partner, supplied 100 TV sets to the firm on credit. Credit means on loan basis. Loan basis or pay later. After expiry of credit period, Z did not get amount of TV sets sold to the partnership firm. Z filed a suit against X in A for the recovery of price. Here in the given case, A, the manager is also liable for the price because he becomes a partner by holding out. He has become a partner by holding out. He remained silent. Okay, he has held himself out as a partner. He has held himself out as a partner. Now he cannot run away from the liability. It is only the person to whom the representation has been made and who has acted thereon that has the right to enforce liability arising out of such holding out. Okay, this is also another key part of it, that okay, it is not the case that once a partner has held himself out as a partner, then anyone and everyone in the public can file a case against him. Okay, and he will not take any of the liabilities incurred about by the firm as well automatically. Automatically, it won't be that all liabilities of the firm will become the liabilities of the partner by holding out as well. No, only in those cases where the liability has been incurred by representing him as a manager, or upon his credit, upon his face value, or where he was representing himself as the partner. Only in those cases, okay, where he is actively involved as a partner by holding out, only in those cases his liability, the firm's liability, will devolve upon the partner by holding out as well, not in all the cases. Okay, you must also note that for the purpose of fixing liability on a person who has by representation led another to act, it is not necessary to show that he was actuated by fraudulent intention. Okay, it is not even necessary to show that he was working under a fraudulent intention, but simply because he has become a partner by holding out, he is liable. It is not mandatory to show that he was having a fraudulent intention. This person, the partner by holding out, was having a fraudulent intention. It is not necessary. The rule given in section 28 is also applicable to a former partner who has retired from the firm without giving proper public notice of his retirement. Now, proper public notice. Now, we are discussing a proper public notice. This is not merely a public notice, it is a proper public notice. Okay, so proper public notice. Proper public notice. It should be clear and in relevant newspaper. Okay, like suppose I am a partner of a partnership firm which is active in Punjab, and I issue my public notice in a newspaper which is active in Tamil Nadu only, or I issue my advertisement on Star News, sorry, Star Net or Surya TV. Now, Surya TV is a regional language. Sun TV, Surya TV, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, Hyderabad, etc. And my firm is active in Jammu Kashmir and Punjab. Now people either understand Hindi or Punjabi or English. They do not understand the regional language like Telugu, Kannada or Malayalam. but I issue my public notice in Malayalam. That is not going to be a proper public notice. Okay, that is not going to be a proper public notice. So, a public notice has to be a proper public notice. Proper public notice means it should fulfill all the formalities of a valid legal notice. Okay, it cannot be a vague notice as well, that you have given the notice in the national newspaper, but you have not mentioned your name. Your name you have mentioned some other nickname. You have written mentioned yourself as a nickname. You have not clearly written the name of the firm, or you have named some other firm, or you have put some other address of the firm. If your notice is going to be the vague, then this notice is not, that particular vague notice is not going to be a efficient notice. Okay, and you will continue to be a partner because a proper notice has to be there. Okay, so rule 28 says, rule given in section 28 is also applicable to a former partner who was retired from the firm without giving proper public notice of his retirement. In such cases, a person who, even subsequent to the retirement, give credit to the firm on belief that he was a partner, okay, he will be entitled to hold him liable. Example: a partnership firm consisting of P, Q, R, and S. S retires from the firm without giving public notice, and his name continues to be used on the letterheads. Here, S is liable as a partner by holding out to the creditors who have lent on the faith of his being a partner. Okay, now he has retired, but the company is still using his name on the letterhead. Sorry, the firm is still using his name on the letterhead. Whatever the firm is doing, they are still using the name of this person, this partner who has retired, on the letterhead of the company, and he does not dispute it even. Now, in this case, if some financial liability is incurred by the firm, then this particular person, he is going to be the liable for those actions as well, but he is not going to be liable for all the actions. Okay, in case you want to hold him liable, see, some people are stalwarts of business. Okay, some people are having such an aura, or such a knowledge, or such expertise, or such a system of governance or principle way of working, that they are really very popular in the particular business setting. They are really very famous for their integrity, their credibility. Okay, just like we discussed the case of Ratan Tata. So when these people come somewhere, or when these people like him, do something, the thing automatically becomes a very credible activity. Nobody doubts something when it is being started by a likes of Ratan Tata, like the case of Sachin Tendulkar. When he sets up a cricket academy, a lot of people, a lot of kids are going to join that cricket academy because they believe Sachin Tendulkar, because actually Sachin Tendulkar is regarded as the god of cricket and we worship him. Cricket fans worship Sachin Tendulkar. So now when Sachin Tendulkar sets up a cricket academy, though he is not going to come there and train people regularly, he will probably visit once in a month or twice in a month just to give some motivational or inspiring lectures to the youngsters who have joined his academy and are paying fees. Ultimately, some other people are going to provide coaching. But because of the Sachin Tendulkar's name or Ratan Tata's name, a lot of people, a lot of youngsters are going to enter into that particular academy or going to take part, going to do business with that particular firm where Ratan Tata's name is there. Okay, so in such case, because these people are so influential that by their name only the work is done. So when something is done because of these people, when they hold themselves out, okay, they hold themselves out as a partner, even though they are not partners, but they hold themselves out as partners, or they were partner of the firm. Like Ratan Tata used to be the chairman of the Tata Group, but now he is no longer a chairman. But suppose his own letterhead, his name still continues to be mentioned as a chairman, or on a partnership firm, his name still continues to be as one of the partners of a partnership firm. So when someone is going to deal with the partnership firm, he will read the letterhead. He will see the name of the Sachin Tendulkar or the Ratan Tata written over it. He will automatically start believing on the firm. Though the Ratan Tata has retired, but Ratan Tata has not given a proper public notice. Now people are not aware that Ratan Tata has retired because his name is still being used on the letterheads. So in such a case, when Ratan Tata retires without getting his name removed from the letterhead, okay, and people believe that Ratan Tata is a partner and they do business, then those liabilities are going to be a liability of Ratan Tata or Sachin Tendulkar as well. But this shall happen only in those cases where the party is actually able to demonstrate, where the creditor of the firm is actually able to demonstrate, actually able to prove, show that they entered into the business with the firm only because of the name of the Ratan Tata, only because Ratan Tata or Sachin Tendulkar became a partner by holding out. They held themselves as a partner, though they were not partner. Or we enter into the firm only because of the reputation carried by the Ratan Tata or Sachin Tendulkar. Otherwise, we would not have entered into the firm, entered into a financial dealing with the firm. So, in those cases only, the liabilities of the firm will become the liabilities of Ratan Tata or Sachin Tendulkar also. Otherwise, it won't happen automatically that each and every case of liability of the firm will become a liability of Ratan Tata or Sachin Tendulkar. It will be a duty upon the one who wants to bring this as a liability of Sachin Tendulkar Ratan Tata to show that when he did business with the firm or when he did some transaction with the firm, he did it only because of the personal reputation enjoyed by the Sachin Tendulkar Ratan Tata and because of their names being attached to this particular firm. Otherwise, not. Okay. Now, in the next class, we will begin with the relation of partners to one another. Okay, so I wanted to start it right now, but it will become quite lengthy. 2 hours a lecture is quite a sufficient lecture. So let's do a quick review what we have done discussed in this class. We have discussed the difference between partnership and the club, and we have discussed difference between Hindu undivided family and partnership. It's a very big difference. Sorry, not very big, I mean difference upon a detailed distinction based upon a lot of basis of differentiation. So you must gulp it and you must understand it as well, because it is a lot many times asked in the exams. CA exams are not like exams of any other exam where MCQs are asked. A lot of descriptive questions come and you may be asked, so you'll have to write some lengthy answers. So you have to understand these concepts. Then we did partnership and co-ownership. Okay, partnership and association. Then we have done kinds of partnerships. Okay, there are four kinds of partnership: partnership at will, then partnership for the fixed period, particular partnership, and then the general partnership we have done. Then partnership deed and how partnership deed how important a partnership deed is, and why we should all have a partnership deed whenever we wish to set up a partnership. Then there are some contents of the partnership deed which partnership deed may have. I must say that these are not may, this is must. These contents are which any partnership deed must contain. Okay, and we have discussed why a partnership deed must contain these elements. And there may be some more extra which is depending upon business to business, but these are the must. Then we have done the types of partner. There are 8 type of partner. It's a active partner, sleeping partner, nominal partner, partner in profits only, incoming partner, and outgoing partner. Partner by holding out, which is very much important for the exams point of view. This partner by holding out is very relevant because it's a quite confusing at a detailed scenario. So in exams, a lot of times this particular question is asked, that what is a partner by holding out, or probably an example may be given to you, just an example like Ratan Tata and his nephew and this and that, and whether Ratan Tata will be liable or not. Then you will have to decide the liability of the Ratan Tata, and how you will decide the liability of Ratan Tata, you will decide his liability. You will answer that question based upon this section 28, which says partner by holding out and or a retiring partner. Okay, so with this, we close this chapter 2 unit sorry lecture 2 of Partnership Act.